All right, Daf Pei Aleph. This is Monday's Daf, and we ended off yesterday talking about the fact that the Mishnah doesn't include the Malchus from Mechusar Zman. Once we have an Isser of Isai v'Yaz B'nai, so I have to hold off from shechting this Kachim today. So by shechting it now, besides the Isai v'Yaz B'nai, there should also be a lav of Mechusar Zman. So the Gemara had said, it's a lav Nuchroi, it's not directly related. We didn't discuss it yesterday, but Taisvis does bleib shver on the Hava Amina, because l'cher it's a lav Shebaklolos. And that gets into the definition of lav Shebaklolos. But Al Koponim, we're picking it up from the very bottom of Peyam and Beis, Rabbi Zera Omar, Hanach l'Mechusar Zman, don't hack me about Mechusar Zman, the Hakosav, moving over to Amud Aleph, Nitkai la'aseh. The Torah took it away from a lav to make it an aseh, which sounds like that the Gemara is saying that the Torah made this lav really as a support for the aseh, because my time at Amar Kram, Meyayim Hashmini ba'Allah Yeiratzeh, Meyayim Hashmini in, Me'ikar Aloi, you should only bring the carbon from the 8th day, but before that you shouldn't do it. So lav abba mechlal aseh, and this is an example of how the Torah really wants you to do a mitzvah aseh of bringing it in the right time. The lav haba mechlal aseh, and that's what we mean by being menatek the aseh, but not that it's a classic lav that you would get malchus for. But Rashi doesn't stress this so much. Rashi makes it sound like it's a real genuine lav hanitik la aseh. Tosfos is bothered by Rashi because this isn't like the shiluach hakan of leisikach lemalabanim shalech t'shalach esaim kind of a lav hanitik la aseh. Here it's just a choice. What do you do? Whenever lav hanitik la aseh comes up, Rabbi Rosner loves to mention from the Stei Chemed that asks a kasha that there's an answer to. It's just a fun kasha to ask, that why isn't every Avera really a lav hanitik la aseh? You should never get malchus because every time you do a lav, you can always do tshuva. This can be found in the Stei Chemed in Chelek Gimel, page 301. And the Stei Chemed brings a bunch of different terutzim, because tshuva is not something that's Moser Lebezdin, and he brings other ideas. But the fun teretz is the one that's the Divrei Charifas, which is that the reason why lav hanitik la aseh does not get malchus is because it's not daimet de chasima. It's not similar to the lav of muzzling your animal. But if doing tshuva for any lav would be menatek the lav, kum techais, even chasima would have that maila of potential tshuva. Mela now it becomes daimil lechasima, and therefore you'd never have the Patur of Malchus in the first place. Kind of a good chap. But anyway, Frekta Gemara, the Rabbi Afturiki. This pasuk of Miyameshmini ba'Allah Yeiratzeh, we need it for something else, according to Rav Afturiki. The Rabbi Afturiki Rami made us diriksiv v'haya shivas yamim tachasimai, that when this animal's born, it should be by its mother for 7 days. But halayla chazi, but on that night going into the 8th day, it's roi for a carbon. Uchsiv miyayim hashmini ba'Allah Yeiratzeh. But later in that same pasuk, it says on the 8th day it's mutter, which sounds like miyayim hashmini ba'Allah in laila loy. So, how do you reconcile that preceding night of day 8, which sounds like there's a stira? So the teretz is, Rav Afturiki, that laila l'kedusha, you can be makdish it by night, but yoim l'hartzah, but you can only bring it on the mizbeach by day. Taisus is bothered by why do I need a pasuk for this? You can never bring karbonis at night. So Taisus suggests that if you mistakenly brought it on the mizbeach, you're allowed to leave it there. And this drush is coming to actually tell us that even b'diavad, you have to take it off the mizbeach. There's an important stipler about this in Zvachim and Simon Zion. But anyway, our Gemara's kasha is that l'chera this pasuk is being used. So how can Reb Zera use this to say that this is like a lavaditik la'aseh and has a din of an aseh and therefore you wouldn't get the malchus? To which the Gemara answers, Ksiv kro achrina, kein taseh l'sharecha l'tzaynecha. So since Rav Afturiki can use this pasuk to learn his drasha, the previous one is available for Reb Zera's halacha. Omer of Hamnuna. Omer Haya Rabbi Shimon that we discussed yesterday, that a shchita she'ena ruya is leishmei shchita, ein Isai v'yaz b'nai naig b'kachim. It's never negeya by kachim, because my time had given to Omer Rabbi Shimon shchita she'ena ruya leishmei shchita, shchita's kachim nami shchita she'ena ruya, as we said yesterday, that until you have this rikas adam, that basar's usser. So kol's man you haven't done this rika, it's not a shchita ruya, and therefore you can never be chayiv for Isai v'yaz b'nai by kachim. Mosiv Rava, the Bryce says Isai v'yaz b'nai kachim b'chutz. Rabbi Shimon Omer sheni b'loisa say the second shchita is going to be a lav about shchutei chutz. Shahir Rabbi Shimon Aimer kol haroy lavei la'achar zman, any carbon that is roy later on, haray hu b'loisa say there's still going to be a lav of shchutei chutz. But ve'en by karis, because that's not classic shchutei chutz. V'chachamim Aimerim kol she'en by karis ein a b'loisa say. If there's not going to be chayiv karis for the shchutei chutz, it's not going to even have the lav. V'koshelon, and we asked about this brisa, the kachim b'chutz sheni b'loisa say. Did Rav Shimon really say that when they're both kachim, the second one is only going to be a lav and not karis? According to Rav Shimon, that it's a shchita she'en Ruya, Kama Miktal Kotel. The first one is just being killed without a shchita. So Sheni Mekabel B'Pnimu. And therefore the second one is really roy to be brought on the Mizbeach, and therefore Kares Nami Lechayiv. It's not just a lav. It should also be Kares. The Yomer Rava, and to that Kasha Rava had said, Ma'amre Le Kedi, and some said it was B'Shem Kedi, they Chizur Mechsura V'Hachi Ketani. This is what the Bryce meant to say, that there are 3 different Ifanim of Kachim that are Shchutei Chutz. That Kachim Shneim B'Chutz, where both parent and child animal are both kachim and they're shchutei chutz, that according to the Rabbanan, Rishon, Einish, Karis, and Sheni is puzzle, upater melab de shchutei chutz, and therefore the sheichet is going to be pater from the einshim of shchutei chutz, because we explained according to the Rabbanan consider that second one temporarily not shaykh from his bech because of the Isser of Isavias B'nai, it's Mechusar's man, and therefore you're pater als the shchutei chutz. You'll be chayiv for the Isavias B'nai, but you'll be pater for the shchutei chutz. The Rabbi Shimon, who holds that the sheichet's not even doing a kosher shchita, shnei einshim kares, and therefore the second animal is really still shaykh to a shchita mibifnim. So echad b'chutz ve'echad mibifnim. The second case where the first one was brought by chutz and the second one was brought by fnim, that according to the Rabban and Rishon and Kares, sheni's puzzle u potter. And of course you're still chayiv malchus for Isavias B'nai, but klape shchutei chutz you'll be potter. And the third case, echad b'fnim ve'echad b'chutz, where one of the karbonos was brought b'fnim like you're supposed to, and then one was brought mibachutz, that the Rabban and Rishon kosher u potter like you're supposed to do. Sheni puzzle u potter, you'll be potter from the einish of the shchitas chutz, even though you're over Isavias B'nai. But Rabbi Shimon, sheni b'leisa say the second sheichet is chayiv the lav of shchutei chutz. V'isal katetech ein Isavias B'nai naig b'kachim like you're suggesting. Sheni amai b'leisa say v'suloi. Why is the second sheichet chayiv to a lav and no more? L'chayra kares nami l'chayiv. Because if the kachim is not roi, since you're not allowed to eat it until this rika, that first animal is not even a shchita l'gabi Isavias B'nai, and the second animal is still roi to be brought that day, and therefore you should be chayiv kares for doing shchutei chutz. Ela Amar Rava hachi ka Amar Rav Hamnuna ein malchus Isavias B'nai naig b'kachim. According to Reb Shimon, the lav of Isavias B'nai is not negate to kachim, kivan the kamado loy zorik dam loy mishtri basar, and therefore may idna de kashochat when you're shechting have a hasras safek v'hasra safek leish me hasra. Kom techais, when you come to do the hasra, at that moment it's still a shchita she'ena ru'uya for that isra of Isavias B'nai, and only after you do the zrika then it will become possible to be over the isra. Rashi has a different pshat in the Gemara. He's not geiris the whole hasra safek leish me hasra issue, and the way Rashi is geiris the Gemara, this is really just saying that according to Reb Shimon it is a shchita ru'uya, as the Gemara suggested yesterday, because after the zrika that's what makes it roi. So that's called a shchita ruya. Back to the Gemara. Ve'ozda rava latame de amar rava he chulin ubna shlamim. If an animal's chulin and its offspring is going to be a carbon shlamim, and they're both geshachtin on the same day, the halacha is shachat chulin va'achar kach shachat shlamim. If first the chulin was geshachtin, then the shlamim, you're potter from malchus, according to Reb Shimon, because of this hasra safek. But shlamim va'achar kach chulin, then you're going to be chayiv malchus even according to Reb Shimon. Because lamaisa, once that zrika of the shlamim is done, is zicher a proper shchita. And since the second animal is chulin and doesn't need to have zrika, the shchita itself makes it mutter to eat. And therefore it's a shchita haru'uya. V'yomar Rava, he chulin ubna oila. Let's say an animal's chulin and its offspring is a carbon oila, and they're both geshachin on the same day. The halach is lemi boy shachat chulin v'achar kach shachat oila de potter. That's pashut. You don't even tell me that if one shechted the chulin one and then he shechted the oila that he's going to be potter from malchus according to Reb Shimon. Turning over to Tamid Beis, ela afilu shachat oila v'achar kach shachat chulin. Even if first the oila was geshachtin and then you did the zrika and then you shechted regular chulin, you'd still be potter from malchus according to Reb Shimon, because an oila is different than a shlamim. Why? Because shchita kamaisa lav shchita basachilahi. That first shchita for an oila is not a shchita that makes it right to eat. Since you never eat an oila, it's kulei kolel. But for Rabbi Yaakov Amar Rabbi Yochanan, achilas mizbeach shma achila. That is called an achila, my taima, because the Amar Kra v'im he'ochel ye'ochel mi basar zevach shlamav. So this double lashon of he'ochel ye'ochel tells us that b'shtei achilas hakasav medaber echad achilas adam v'echad achilas mizbeach, and therefore you see that's considered an achila. Kum techayis, it's a shchita haruya, and therefore you'll be chayav for Isai v'yaz b'nai. So look the Mishnah. Hashaychit v'nimtza treifa. Let's say after a regular shchita, you find it to be a treifa, or hashaychit lavei zara, v'hashaychit paras chatas, or shayar haniskel, v'egla arufa. All these things are going to be usher to eat. Rabbi Shimon is paiter. This is the halacha that Rabbi Shimon holds. Because of shchita she'ena ruya, you will not be chayiv for Isavias B'nai, but v'chachamim are mechayven. Because according to the Rabbanan, it does blibe shchita. Hashaychev in this nabla b'yadai. Let's say the shchita gets messed up and it becomes a nevela, v'haneicher v'hama'aker, or you do something else that's not considered kosher or shchita. Pater mishum Isavias B'nai. And the fact that we stress that you're pater mishum Isavias B'nai or b'kiveger's medayik, it's because there still is other isurim. There's tzar b'achayim, baltashches, etc. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Zok Rish Lakish, Leishanu Ella Sheshachat Rishon La'Avodah Zarah V'Sheni L'Shulchanai. This machlokes of Rabbi Shimon and the Rabbanan, when the animal shechted for Avodah Zarah, that's when the first one is done for Avodah Zarah and the second one is done for yourself. Avol Rishon L'Shulchanai. Let's say you're shechting the first one for yourself, V'Sheni La'Avodah Zarah, then you're putter because the Kim Le'Bid Rabba Minei. You just did Avodah Zarah, and therefore you're not going to get Malkus. Frak the Gemara, Amar Le Rabbi Yochanan, Zu Afil Tinaika Shal Beis Rabban Yodenaisa. Come on, even the Kinderlich know that. There's no Chiddush in telling me there's an idea of Kim Le'Bid Rabba Minei. Ella, you want to tell me a Chiddush? You give me chayev. How's that? Going to aser be mishum Isavias B'nai. Let's say you're about to shech that second animal and they give him a hasra about Esav as benai, v'lo yasur by mishum avodah zarah. So they never gave him the possibility for the einish of the avodah zarah. You're still going to get malchus for Esav as benai. But for Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Omar, kivin uchi asur by potter. Since if they would have given him the hasra for the avodah zarah, you wouldn't be chayiv malchus alts Esav as benai because of the kimlei b'rabba minei ki lo yasur by nami potter. Even if you don't actually give the hasra, you will still be potter alts the kimlei. V'ozdu l'tamayu. Both Rabbi Yechon and Reish Lakish are l'shitasam. Tichi yasar of dimi Omar chayiv misas shaygigin v'chayiv malchus shaygigin, meaning when you don't get the actual einish because you didn't get the hasra. V'dover acher, and something else which should give you another einish. Rabbi Yechon Omar chayiv, Reish Lakish Omar potter. Rabbi Yechon Omar chayiv deha loy asur bay. Reish Lakish Omar potter because the kivin tichi yasar ba potter ki loy asur bay nami potter. And at Tzricha, I need to have this repeat machlekes between Rabbi Yechon and Reish Lakish, the Yashmin and Baha. Because if you're only going to tell me the case in our Mishnah where there were two einshim of Misa and Malchus, I would have said Baha ka Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. There's a patur of Kimlei b'Rabba Minei. Al Baha, but the other case where it's Misa and Mammon, Ema Maidi Leila Rabbi Yechanan. So the chiddush is that you even have the patur by the Misa and the Mammon. V'yed Mar Baha ka Amar Rabbi Yechanan by Mammon. Al Baha Ema Maidi Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Tzricha. And this is where we're going to call it. We'll pick it up with the Paras Chatas for tomorrow's daf.